Environmentalists all over the internet talk about thrifting. You should be thrifting instead of buying new. You should be thrifting instead of buying new, myself included. So let's talk about why thrifting is actually better for the planet. Let's get into all the details about why it's better. Featuring one of my favorite thrifted shirts, Red Rock Canyon, go climb a rock. But some things shouldn't be thrifted, and for me, one of those things is undergarments. So when I'm looking for undergarments, I seek out natural materials like today's sponsor, Wamma. Wamma undergarments are made from hemp, one of the most sustainable plant materials, and are not only sustainably made, but also comfortable and practical. They also strive to change the narrative around hemp and use it as a sustainable material across the board in the future, and strive to take away any of those negative connotations. Hemp has been one of the oldest known materials of fabric. It has been around for years and years and years, and I really love to see companies bringing it back into style. Hemp is also naturally antibacterial, soft, and breathable, which is important in undergarments. But why is hemp so eco-friendly? It's a fast-growing crop and requires much less water and pesticides compared to other plant materials. And of course, it reduces the need for oil-based textiles, which are highly pollutive, such as polyester, nylon, rayon, and so forth. So as we dive into the importance of buying used, buying secondhand, we should all just also understand that we can't buy everything secondhand when it comes to things like cleanliness and stuff like that. Sometimes we do have to buy new products, so it's important to look at what those new products are made of and support the most sustainable crops that we can. Because not only is plant-based materials less pollutive to create, but it is also less pollutive to dispose of, and of course they won't release microplastics. You can shop Wamma's undergarments with the link below and let me know which style and color you would choose. And also let me know down below some things that you absolutely would not thrift, because I know there's quite a big list for some people. But anyway, let's get back into today's video, the importance of shopping secondhand. But before we get too far into it, we do need to talk about the elephant in the room, and if you don't know who that is big box thrift stores. They are problematic for a lot of reasons. For the most part, you can learn all about big box thrift stores in this video, the truth about thrift stores, particularly stores like Goodwill and the Salvation Army. Obviously, they're good for the planet because, you know, they're preventing resources from ending up in the landfill for the most part. They're also not great for the planet because they get so much inventory that they can't accept everything, and so they ship a lot of it overseas for other people to deal with. Here's some other resources that I highly encourage you check out in addition to this video and that other video. That is The Story of Stuff by Annie Leonard, Consumed by Aja Barber. They both go into overconsumption, capitalism, and particularly fast fashion. Very compelling books and very interesting if you want to learn more. It's going to be very hard to touch on every single factor, every single category, you know, tech, fashion, appliances, books, furniture, all that sort of stuff. So I'm going to focus mostly on tech and fast fashion since those are some of the biggest categories when shopping secondhand. As well as this was the most information I could find, as well as the most accurate information I could find. So just know that whatever you choose to buy secondhand, it's going to have a less impact on the planet, whether that be a washing machine, a book, a desk, a soccer ball, or a t-shirt. First, we need to talk about resource consumption. Do you know how much water it takes to make one pair of jeans? 1,800 gallons, one pair of brand new jeans, and 400 gallons of water to make one t-shirt. Both of these are made out of cotton. And that's just the water footprint, right? We also need to look at other things like, what does it take for cotton to grow? It also takes probably fertilizer, pesticides, as well as fuel usage when it comes to cotton harvesters, combines, as well as manual labor, not only for driving these machines, but people who manually pick the cotton, plus the fuel usage to ship all of this stuff to all the different facilities, right? So the cotton has to be grown and harvested, and then it's shipped somewhere to be turned into thread. And then from there, it's taken somewhere to be turned into fabric, and then the fabric is turned into a t-shirt, and then the t-shirt is sent to a warehouse, and then the warehouse is sent to you. It's a lot. This is a huge chain of events going on, and this is just cotton that we're talking about. This is not including polyester, nylon, bamboo, silk, any of that. And of course, land usage as well. When we are knocking down native plants to plant monocrops, that is terrible for the environment and terrible for biodiversity. I actually have a really fun mini series I did, I think it was in 2020, maybe 2021. It was a whole series on biodiversity, on what is biodiversity, how can we save biodiversity, how are we impacting biodiversity. If you want to learn more about those, they're all three of them will be linked down below. Native plants, forests, you know, carbon sinks are cut down in order to grow our cotton to make us new clothing. Like I said, cotton is extremely water intensive, which can lead to drought. I believe cotton is one of the plants that is grown in the desert Southwest, along with alfalfa, another very heavy crop. And this is one of the major factors, not leading to drought, but I guess emphasizing the effects of drought. So like not only is the desert Southwest in a drought because of climate change, but now the effects of the drought are exacerbated because more and more water is being used and not enough water is being replenished in the rivers and the reservoirs. Of course, this also displaces native peoples and even non-native peoples as well for farmland. And like I said, that's just natural materials, like stuff that we actually grow and use water and fertilizer for. Plastic-based clothing like polyester, nylon, spandex, rayon, there's a lot of them. They use oil to create that. So now that oil has to be extracted, refined, turned into thread, I suppose, spun into fabrics, cut into shirts, and then it's shipped. Now, not that I'm condoning fossil fuels, but I do think it's a better use of them to use them to power our cars to get to and from places instead of for clothing. I know it's the cheapest, but again, like, it's the cheapest because of subsidies. This is just one rabbit hole after the other. But not only is it pollutive to create polyester, it's also pollutive to wear and wash polyester by creating microplastics, which we'll get to later. For now, let's talk about reduced emissions. Shopping secondhand can not only reduce your resource footprint, but also your emissions as well. Now, the carbon footprint is a bit of a scam, the individual carbon footprint, and you can learn more about that in this video, but I still do think it's important to look at our personal carbon footprint and make changes where we see fit. If you can avoid polyester, it's great to avoid it at all costs, but like, as we just mentioned with all the resource usage, if you are buying polyester secondhand, there's not all those emissions going into creating that piece of plastic clothing for you, instead of had you bought that shirt brand new. Then you would be personally contributing to the resource extraction and the emissions of creating a plastic-based clothing. So brand new polyester requires about 14.2 kilograms of CO2 per kilogram produced. So 14 kilograms of CO2 to create just 1 kilogram of polyester. 1 kilogram of polyester to create is the equivalent of driving a car 35 miles. Something to put into perspective. And of course, depending on the size of the shirt, you can make 5 or 6 shirts from 1 kilogram of polyester. So each polyester shirt that you buy brand new is the equivalent of driving 5 or 6 miles. And that's just the polyester. That's not accounting for the dyes, the dyeing process, shipping, the fabric waste. There's so much more that goes into it. Speaking of that though, we do need to talk about the entire life cycle of our clothing and how it gets from, the ground to us. So if you buy fast fashion, it's likely coming from overseas, Taiwan, China, India, Indonesia, but that's just the garment itself. We need to also look at where all the different components for that garment are coming from to go to that manufacturer, and then from that manufacturer to your door. Here is just some places where some of the most common materials are grown and produced in the world. So the top cotton producers are India and China. The top polyester producers are China, Taiwan, Japan, Korea, India, and Indonesia. Top nylon producers are China, India, Pakistan, and Indonesia. And the top wool producers is Australia, followed by China, Russia, New Zealand, Argentina, South Africa, the UK, and Uruguay. Of course, that's not where all of them are made. Those are just the top producers of each of those materials, just to give you a little bit of an idea of where each of them are grown before they actually get to a factory somewhere else. And you also have to look at like big countries like China, Russia, even the United States. If we grow cotton and it's like cotton grown in the United States and shirt made in the United States, these countries are huge. So like there's still a lot of shipping even domestically to create a product. If like the cotton was grown in Arizona, for example, and then made in LA or New York, that's still a lot of shipping. And this is just like the base fabric, right? This isn't including thread, dyes, buttons, zippers, etc. So with all of this shipping in mind, Carbon Fact estimates that each t-shirt made brand new across the globe is about 7 to 10 kilograms of CO2 per shirt. And that's just per shirt. So imagine you're on Shein and you buy 10 shirts. That's 100 kilograms of CO2 just in shirts. If you ever wondered the global emissions of fast fashion, here you go. According to Geneva Environment Network, the fashion industry is responsible for 8 to 10 of humanity's carbon emissions. That is more than all international flights and international shipping combined. If the fashion industry continues on this trend of, increasing so much per year, right now we're at 8 to 10%, and I'm sure we're gonna get to it later, but like all this to say, we already have clothes in existence. Why are we polluting the earth this terribly for clothes that we don't even need? Shopping secondhand will avoid toxic waste disposal and physical pollution. With the creation of anything new, even eco products like e-bikes, a Pila phone case, a new clean canteen water bottle, there's going to be some byproduct waste, as well as some form of pollution, and whether that be air pollution, noise pollution, physical pollution, water pollution, there's going to be some. Unless a company is using, even solar, like looking through the entire chain of using solar, there's going to be some emission somewhere. And the saddest part is that usually it's not our problem. And what I mean is, I were to go onto Shein's website and buy a shirt, the effects of creating that shirt will not affect me because that shirt is not made in my backyard. Those toxic waste chemicals that are coming from dyeing that shirt, growing that shirt with fertilizer and pesticides, it's not going to affect me because that's not being done in my backyard. It's not being done with my hands, my body. Have you ever wondered how the US and other countries like us can drastically reduce our emissions? It's by sending all of this labor overseas. We've made it someone else's problem, and something that I really want to talk about in the future is environmental colonialism and environmental racism in this way, in that we're, sending this labor to people of color and polluting their homes, their water, their food, because we don't want that pollution. It's terrible for us. I really want to talk about that in a future video if you guys are interested. Anyway, according to the Geneva Environment Network, around 20% of industrial wastewater pollution worldwide originates from the fashion industry. Again, not our water, someone else's water that they now can no longer drink. Just so that we can wear a new trendy item that we can get for $3 on Shein or Temu. Something else toxic that we need to look at is the disposal of things like tech. Now, of course, when you buy something brand new, you can donate it, you can sell it, you can get rid of it in a more sustainable way. Again, go check out my full video on thrift stores, because not everything that we donate is going to be resold. A lot of it will be thrown away. And one of the worst things that we can put in our landfills is tech. According to the EPA, they estimate that in 2009, US consumers and businesses discarded televisions, computers, cell phones, and hard copy peripherals to include printers, scanners, and faxes, totaling 2.37 million tons, 2.25 tons of tech in the landfill in just 2009. So of this that was disposed, approximately 25% of it was actually collected for recycling and reuse. Only 25%. And something that just blows my mind with tech is that it is so valuable to recycle. Why is it not recycled more often? This means that these precious metals cannot be recovered and they leach toxic chemicals into our landfills, which can actually leak out into our groundwater and soil. In the fashion industry, a lot of textiles are also wasted in the form of excess fabric. It's called dead stock. So say they cut out my t-shirt shape like this part right here would be wasted, this part right here would be wasted, the neck hole area would be wasted. And while some companies are taking use of that dead stock, like Cotopaxi, they make a lot of stuff out of dead stock stuff from like outdoor brands. So the most common thing is to not reuse it and just throw it away. According to earth.org, due to the number of cutouts for clothing, a large number of materials gets wasted as they cannot be used any further, with one study predicting that 15% of fabric used in garment manufacturing is wasted. Bloomberg also reports that the dyeing of textiles, as well as treatment of them, is responsible for 1/5 of industrial water pollution worldwide, according to a report by the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. Not only this, but the fashion industry and other industries like tech, etc., are also responsible for other forms of pollution, water pollution, we already talked about, soil pollution, air pollution, so many different forms of pollution that then end up in our plants, they end up in our animals, and they end up in our food. I have a ton of videos on the environmental impact on tech that I will leave linked down below. By supporting thrifting, you are also making sure that fewer things are thrown away. This is important more now than ever. If you didn't know, our landfills are not infinite, and you can learn more in this video about how long we have until our landfills actually fill up in the United States, as well as why can't we just pop up new landfills everywhere? It should be easy, right? No, there are requirements that go into creating a landfill, and we do have only so much space on this earth. Even if we could put landfills everywhere, we only have so much space to put landfills that are not, protected lands or someone's land that they're living on. So other than recycling and composting, other things that we can do to prevent stuff from going to the landfill is donating, reselling, reusing, repairing, and also just not buying stuff in the first place. Like, think through your impulse buys so that way stuff doesn't end up in the landfill, because even if you are recycling, even if you are donating, neither of those are perfect systems, and your item still could end up in the landfill. By donating and selling, and then also supporting thrift stores by buying stuff secondhand as well, you're supporting a circular economy versus a linear economy. So a linear economy is this. Materials are harvested, it is turning it into a brand new item, it's selling that item, using that item, and then throwing that item away, or even recycling it. I consider recycling part of the linear economy. For the most part, a circular economy is instead harvesting some materials, turning that into an item, selling that item, using that item. When that item no longer serves you, you then sell or donate that item gets reused, it's then sold or donated, it then gets reused, and then at the very end of that product's life, when it is, the shirt is too torn up, or the piece of tech is just way too old, it doesn't work anymore, then we can think about recycling before the landfill. Like, the landfill should never ever cross our mind unless something is truly garbage. Something else to think of with thrifting is that trends come and go. As we're seeing right now, a ton of 90s and early 2000s trends are back, like the little bags, scrunchies, low-rise jeans, tank tops. 90s fashion is really in right now. And guess what? If you held on to that stuff from the early 2000s and the 90s, you're in trend. Cool. Mom, do you have my butterfly clips? I kind of want them. So if we hold on to them or keep them in circulation in our thrift stores, then in 10-20 years when the trends come back around, we don't have to recreate them from new. We don't have to create new products to mimic vintage or older items. We can just use the vintage or older items that were created 20-30 years ago instead of making new items. But this also means that you shouldn't just buy into every trend that comes around. Instead, Find your style, find what works for you, what's comfortable for you, what makes you feel good, and stick to that. Find something timeless. But if you do want trendy items, look secondhand first, because chances are you'll probably find something that kind of fits the new trends. Then you can be trendy if that's what you want to do without having to create all this waste that we've talked about. Let's get into some benefits for thrifting that aren't necessarily for the planet, but for you. The first one being that thrifting is cheaper, with the exception of maybe vintage thrifting, vintage shopping. But for the most part, going to a Goodwill, a Salvation Army, again, Goodwill selling shirts for like $10 these days, and like that's definitely more expensive than like Shein or Temu, which is really upsetting, but it's definitely cheaper than buying sustainable or slow fashion, which is great. But also, check your mom and pop thrift shops. Check your local small thrift shops, because they are almost always cheaper from what I've seen. I'm talking like $1 or $2 for a shirt versus $10 at Goodwill. Scam. So even if fashion isn't necessarily cheaper by shopping secondhand, a lot of other things will be cheaper. Stuff like appliances, kitchenware, furniture, decor, bedding, towels, other sorts of stuff like that. That stuff definitely is cheaper almost everywhere, even at Goodwill. Some stuff that we have gotten on crazy discounts is this lens, this camera, my iPad, our Switch, other stuff like that. Like, I'm talking crazy discounts, so always check secondhand the next time you need something. Another benefit for you is that thrifting is unique. I mean, if you want to fit in, that's fine for you, but I don't. I mean, look at me. This shirt, I've never seen someone wear a shirt even similar to this, because I got this secondhand. But this is also for your house, right? A lot of our stuff in our house is secondhand. But if you're looking for like a more eclectic, unique vibe for your home, check secondhand instead of going to Hobby Lobby or Target or Amazon. Again, that all depends on you personally, but if you want to be unique, thrifting is the way to go. So unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, thrifting has become really trendy in itself, as well as like a hot commodity. And while I think there's a place for resellers, because like there is so much secondhand inventory that thrift stores don't know what to do with it, it is increasing prices. Partially, Goodwill's also increasing their prices to meet inflation. Stupid, your inventory is free. But supply and demand is a real thing, even in the secondhand world. So with resellers, the demand for secondhand has really gone up, which is leading to increased prices. If you want me to talk more about that in depth, like resellers and how they're impacting the thrifting market, let me know, because that's something I would love to research for myself and share with you guys. At the end of the day, secondhand shopping is always going to be better for the planet than buying fast fashion, buying new tech, buying new furniture. Even supporting some secondhand companies that are a little on the scammy side, like Goodwill and Salvation Army, that's still better for the planet. Now, I still recommend you find a local mom and pop thrift shop to check out instead, but if Goodwill's your only option, that is still better for the planet. Yep, that's it. Thank you so much for listening to this video. I'm so glad you watched it all the way to the end. I hope that you learned something. If you did, please share this video with others to encourage people to shop secondhand. Always, always, always look secondhand before buying new. There are so many benefits for the planet as well as yourself to secondhand shop. So start secondhand shopping today. If you are a little like grossed out about it, and I know people are for various reasons, and that's totally fair. I'm sure there's tons of resources on the internet on like how to give your clothing a deep clean, how to give your dishes a deep clean, the bedding, the furniture. Like if you want to shop secondhand but you're like kind of worried about how dirty it is, there are resources out there on how to make sure that it's clean and sanitary for your standards. Again, I appreciate your time. Stay tuned for more thrifting content, because I got a lot of ideas from writing this video. Come back next week to talk about how to have an eco birthday party, because next week is my birthday. As I'm filming this. I mean, no. When this video comes out. Not as I'm filming this. It's 2 months from my birthday as I'm filming this. But I'll see you next week. Until then, remember that your small actions make a big difference in the long run. Bye, guys. It's like it looks weird with my glasses. Oh well. Environmental... and a dog in here, sorry.